Fluent Flow podcast. New videos every day. Let's learn English together.
Welcome back to The Deep Dive. You're here, I bet, because you love getting beneath the surface, finding those surprising insights in places you might not expect. Those moments that make you feel genuinely clued in, but, without feeling like you've just waded through a textbook.
Right, cutting through the noise.
Exactly. And today, we're doing just that. We've got a deep dive that honestly looks pretty simple at first glance.
Yeah, deceptively simple, maybe?
Totally.
Right.
But it holds some really quite remarkable wisdom, I think, both for personal well-being day to day and also for how we communicate clearly.
Two really important things.
For sure. Our source material today is this really interesting set of excerpts. It's from a guide called Simple Daily Joys for Fluent English Learners.
Okay.
And specifically, we're pulling from a transcript of one of their episodes titled Simple Things That Make Me Happy.
Right.
Now, you might hear that title and think, okay, that sounds nice, maybe a bit fluffy. Where's the deep dive in that?
I can see people thinking that.
But that's exactly the hidden depth we want to unpack today. We're going to explore how focusing on these really small, simple joys can actually shift your day, maybe even your whole outlook. But, and this is just as fascinating, maybe even more so, we're going to look at how they talk about these joys slowly, clearly.
The method itself.
Yes. The method is key here. It demonstrates this incredibly powerful way to learn, to understand, to find clarity. It's not just for learning English, It applies if you're trying to grasp any new idea, I think.
It's true. What's really fascinating here is how this material works on two levels, isn't it?
Right.
They're deeply connected, but distinct. You've got the message itself that, wisdom about finding happiness in the little things, the everyday stuff.
With intent.
And then there's the how. The delivery method, which you could argue is just as important, just as impactful. So our mission for this deep dive is kind of twofold. First, let's pull out that core wisdom. Let's talk about finding calm, finding contentment in those everyday moments that, let's be honest, usually just fly by.
We just ignore them.
We do, in the general rush. And second, and this is crucial, we need to analyze that communication approach. Why does this slowly conversation, as the source puts it, work so well?
Yeah.
Why isn't it just for language learners? Why is it genuinely good for, anyone trying to understand something new, cut through the mental clutter, or just find a bit of clarity in a world that feels, overwhelmingly noisy sometimes?
So true.
Because as we often say here, knowledge is great, but it's most valuable when you really get it, when you can actually use it in your own life.
Right, when it clicks.
Exactly. And sometimes the simplest delivery, that slow, clear approach, is actually the most powerful way to make things click.
I hear that. So, okay, let's dive into the heart of the message first.
Yeah.
It lays this really relatable foundation right at the start. The source just comes right out and acknowledges this universal thing. Life is hard.
Doesn't pull any punches.
No. It says quite plainly, we feel tired. We feel sad. We feel alone.
Yeah. Hits home for a lot of people, I imagine.
Definitely. But then, almost immediately, it offers the counterpoint, the antidote, maybe.
Okay.
It says, but there are small things, simple things, that make us feel good again. And it really emphasizes that these simple things, they help our hearts and our minds.
That's a lovely way to put it. Help our hearts and our minds.
It is, isn't it? But it's interesting. Why start there? Why begin with that almost downbeat acknowledgement of the struggle?
Yeah, it's a deliberate choice for sure.
How does that slightly somber opening actually prepare us to appreciate the simple things more? Does it make them seem more valuable somehow?
I think it's incredibly intentional and actually really smart.
How so?
Well, by starting with that shared human struggle, tiredness, sadness, loneliness, the source immediately builds this bridge of empathy. It connects with you, the listener, right where you are.
Okay, yeah. It doesn't pretend everything's perfect.
Exactly. It validates those feelings. It says, life is complex. It can feel overwhelming. It's not dismissing the difficulties at all.
Right.
Instead, it's gently offering a way through them, or maybe alongside them. This grounded beginning makes the simple things feel less like some naive Pollyanna advice.
Yeah, like just be happy.
Right. It makes them feel more like genuine, accessible coping tools. A really powerful, practical form of self-care that's actually within reach.
Okay, that makes sense. It reframes them.
It does. Think about it. We're often searching for these big, complicated solutions or grand gestures to feel better, right?
The next big vacation, the promotion.
Exactly. But the source here suggests the remedy might be much closer to home. It's in the things that are easily available, abundant even, all around us if we just notice them. It speaks to that basic human need for comfort, for practical ways to handle daily stress, for small actions we can actually repeat that help us find our balance again.
So identifying them, appreciating them, that becomes the practice.
Precisely. It becomes a conscious practice, a deliberate shift in where you put your focus, your perspective, and that shift actively pushes back against those negative feelings. It's like building resilience, one small mindful moment at a time.
So this raises a question then. In this world that's constantly demanding more, can simplicity really be the answer? The source seems to be saying a strong yes.
I think it does, because it offers this immediate low-barrier way to start feeling better. You don't need a lot of money or time or special equipment.
Right.
It's about noticing what's already there or weaving small things into your day, which actually brings us nicely to the original intent behind this material.
Yeah, the Fluent Flow podcast segment it came from.
Exactly. The source itself says it aims to inspire listeners with positive daily actions and at the same time help beginner English learners improve their listening skills. It has that very clear, practical dual purpose.
And that dual purpose is really why this is such a rich source for a deep dive, I think.
Absolutely.
It's not just the what, the content, it's the how, the delivery. Choosing simple joys as the topic, that's not random, especially for English learners.
Not at all. It's brilliant, actually.
Why do you say brilliant?
Because it ticks so many boxes for effective learning. First, it's universally relatable. I mean, who doesn't want to feel a bit happier or calmer?
Sure.
Second, it's inherently low stress. Talking about a warm cup of tea is much less intimidating than, say, dissecting a complex political debate or mastering irregular verbs.
Definitely less intimidating.
So it provides this really gentle, inviting way into engaging more deeply with English. It makes the learning feel less like a chore, more like a shared positive experience.
It lowers the pressure, that mental barrier.
Exactly. It lowers what linguists sometimes call the affective filter.
Okay, what's that?
It's basically the idea that negative emotions, anxiety, fear of making mistakes, self-consciousness, they can create this mental block that hinders learning. If you're stressed, your brain just isn't as open to taking in new information. Okay. Like trying to learn when you're really nervous about getting it wrong.
Precisely. So, by keeping the topic positive and relatable, and crucially, keeping the language simple and clear, which we'll get into more later, they actively reduce that anxiety.
Making the learner more receptive.
Much more receptive, more open to the language, to the ideas, to practicing. It's a really smart pedagogical approach, baked right into the content choice.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So with that foundation, let's dig into the actual joys themselves. How do they suggest we start the day?
Right. The first one they highlight is about the morning.
Yeah, it's called Morning Light and Quiet. And the description is lovely. It talks about opening the window, looking at the sun rising, seeing the soft and beautiful sky, hearing birds singing.
Very sensory.
Very. And crucially, it says not using a phone. Just sitting, listening to the quiet. This peaceful moment, it claims, helps you feel calm and is a good way to start my day.
That not using the phone part feels key in today's world. It really does. It even asks the listener directly, can you try that? Just sit and look and listen. It's so simple, but it makes a big difference.
Wow. That direct invitation.
Yeah. So think about it. Most of us, or many of us anyway, we roll over, grab the phone. It's almost automatic.
It's like muscle memory for a lot of people.
Exactly. So this practice, it feels almost radical. To consciously choose sensory awareness and disconnect from tech first thing, what's the real power there? It's about setting an intention, like you said earlier, isn't it?
It is absolutely about setting an intention. And the benefits, psychologically and physiologically, are pretty profound when you contrast it with the typical phone first morning.
Okay, break that down.
Well, think about what happens when the alarm goes off and the first thing you do is grab your phone. Instantly, you're flooded. Emails, notifications, social media updates, news headlines.
Yeah, the world rushes in.
It rushes in, exactly. And it immediately puts your brain into reactive mode. It's information overload, potential stress triggers, external demands hitting you before you've even really had a chance to, check in with yourself.
Right. You're already behind almost.
Precisely. It can spike cortisol, your stress hormone. It can hijack your focus for the rest of the day. You end up feeling scattered, like you're constantly playing catch up.
Okay. So the alternative, the quiet looking and listening.
That choice As the source describes it, just sitting, looking, listening allows your brain a gentle transition from sleep to wakefulness. You're engaging your senses deliberately, the sight of the sky, the sound of the birds, maybe the feel of the air. It anchors you in the present moment. It's like a mini reset for your nervous system. It calms things down instead of revving them up.
And that calm can carry through the day.
It really can. Starting the day grounded and centered rather than frazzled and reactive can significantly reduce overall stress levels. It can improve your ability to focus later on. It fosters this sense of inner stability.
Like an anchor.
Exactly like an anchor in what might be a very busy day ahead, welcoming the day on your own terms. And that imagery, the soft and beautiful sky, it's a reminder of nature's calming presence. It's right there, often just outside the window. Free therapy almost.
A free well-being hack. I like that.
Okay.
So building on that calm, that intention setting, the source moves to another seemingly small action, making the bed.
Ah, yes. The classic advice.
Right? The source describes fixing the pillow, folding the blanket, making the bed look nice. And it says this small action helps you feel ready, almost like saying, okay, let's start the day.
It's interesting how such a simple task gets recommended so often.
It is, because honestly, it sounds so trivial, maybe even a bit pointless to some people, just making your bed. How can that create a positive ripple effect beyond just, having a tidier room? It's got to be more than aesthetics.
Oh, it's so much more than just aesthetics. It connects directly to the psychology of small wins.
Small wins. Okay.
Yeah. When you start your day by completing a task, even one that seems minor, like making your bed, you get this immediate, tangible sense of accomplishment.
Oh, okay. Like checking something off the list, even if it's tiny.
Exactly. And that micro achievement sends a little signal to your brain, hey, I did something, I'm capable, I can exert control over my environment. It kicks off a positive feedback loop.
Momentum.
Momentum is the perfect word. Think about those mornings where maybe everything feels a bit chaotic or overwhelming. Taking just those, 60 seconds to make the bed can create this tiny island of order.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's a foundational act, a little bit of self-discipline, a little bit of self-care, and it can genuinely set a more productive, more confident tone for the rest of the day. You approach the next task, maybe a bigger one, feeling slightly more capable.
Like a tiny act of self-empowerment.
That's a great way to put it. It primes you for other successes throughout the day.
Okay, that makes sense. So after establishing that bit of order, the next joy feels very comforting. It's drinking warm tea or coffee.
Ah, a personal favorite for many.
Mine too. The source describes the joy of holding the warm cup, feeling the warmth, and importantly, taking a sip slowly.
Slowly. That word again.
Yeah. And this moment is described as soft and sweet, bringing feelings of being safe and at peace. It's such a universal comfort, isn't it? A warm drink.
Yeah.
Why is warmth so soothing? And why does sipping it slowly make such a difference?
Well, the experience of warmth itself taps into some very deep-seated comfort responses in us.
Like primal.
Pretty much. It's associated with security, with nourishment, maybe even early memories of being cared for. Physiologically, warmth can literally calm the nervous system, helping to dial down our stress responses.
Yeah.
But the real insight here, I think, is that emphasis on sip, slowly. That transforms it from just, gulping down caffeine or hydration
Right, just getting it in.
into an act of mindfulness. It becomes a deliberate pause.
How so?
Because you're engaging your senses, you feel the warmth of the cup, you smell the aroma, you taste the drink, you notice the sensation of swallowing. By focusing on those sensory details and slowing down the act itself, you're actively practicing being present.
Ah, so you're not thinking about the million other things you have to do.
Ideally, no. For that moment, you're just being with your tea or coffee. You're not multitasking. You're not scrolling your phone. It becomes this little mini meditation.
A ritual.
Exactly. A quiet ritual of self-nurturing. It can reset your mind, calm down any anxiety that might be bubbling up, and just provide this pocket of peace and safety. It's an accessible little luxury.
And you can do it multiple times a day, potentially.
Absolutely. So these first few joys, the quiet morning observation, making the bed, the mindful warm drink, they really work together, don't they?
Yeah, they build on each other.
They build this personal foundation, cultivating an inner sense of calm and order before you really dive into the demands of the day. You feel more centered, more prepared to engage with the world.
Okay, so from that personal foundation, the source then moves into practices that feel a bit more about processing things and connecting outwards.
Right. Shifting gears slightly.
Yeah. The next joy is writing in a journal. It talks about feeling lots of different emotions. Happy, sad, angry, all sorts.
The whole spectrum.
And it suggests using a notebook, just writing down what I feel, and crucially, without worrying about grammar.
Ah, that's interesting. No grammar police.
None. It says this helps you understand myself, and it takes away the heavy feelings. It even suggests starting small, maybe with just one sentence a day.
Okay.
Now, that instruction, don't worry about grammar, that really jumped out at me. It feels incredibly freeing, doesn't it?
It really does.
Why is that so liberating? It seems to remove this huge potential barrier, especially if you're learning English, right? But even for anyone, that permission just to get thoughts out without judgment, that feels key.
It is absolutely key.
Yeah.
And hugely liberating. That specific instruction immediately lowers the stakes. Think about it from the perspective of a language learner. Grammar is often this massive source of anxiety, right?
Oh, definitely fear of making mistakes.
Exactly. That affective filter, we talked about the emotional barrier.
Yeah.
By explicitly saying, forget the grammar for now, the focus shifts entirely. It's no longer a performance. It's not a test.
It's just expression.
Purely personal, expressive, getting it out. And that's where the therapeutic power of journaling really lies. It lets you have that raw, unfiltered self-expression.
Okay. And what about the cognitive side? Helping to understand myself.
Well, cognitively, journaling is fantastic. It helps you clarify thoughts that might be all jumbled up in your head. When you write things down, you externalize them.
You see them differently.
You do. You gain a bit of distance. You can look at them more objectively, analyze them. It's like sorting through a messy drawer. You figure out what's actually in there.
That's a good analogy.
And that process helps with emotional regulation. It can genuinely help take away the heavy feelings, like the source says, because you're giving them a shape, making them less amorphous and overwhelming.
You contain them somehow.
Sort of, yeah. And for the language learner, beyond all these emotional pluses, it's also just brilliant low-stakes practice. You build fluency, you build confidence, precisely because there's no pressure. You're writing for you.
A safe space to experiment.
Exactly. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How does that informal, judgment-free practice help bridge the gap between just thinking something and actually expressing it? Not just for learners, for all of us.
Yeah. It lets you voice your inner world without fear.
Which in turn probably strengthens your ability to articulate things more clearly when you do need to communicate with others, practicing with yourself first.
Interesting. Okay, so from that internal expression, the next joy shifts outwards a bit, but still feels very personal. Listening to music.
Ah, another universal one.
Totally. The source mentions liking soft music, happy music, music with kind words. I love that phrase.
Me too. Kind words.
Listening with headphones, closing eyes, maybe sometimes dancing or singing along. It says music helps let go of stress and describes it as like medicine for the heart.
That's powerful imagery. Medicine for the heart.
It really is. Music's ability to just lift you up or soothe you, it's undeniable, isn't it? It crosses all kinds of barriers.
Absolutely.
What is it about music that evokes emotions so strongly? And why is engaging with it like that, closing your eyes, moving, singing, why is that important for well-being?
Music is one of the most direct lines to our emotional centers in the brain. It often bypasses the rational analytical part and goes straight for the feeling.
Yeah, you just feel it.
You just feel it.
Yeah.
Happy music, soft music, music with those kind words. It can instantly shift your mood. It can reduce tension, promote calm. It's a powerful emotional regulator.
Okay. And the closing eyes, dancing part.
That's about full immersion. It's about allowing the sound to completely wash over you, to physically embody the feeling the music brings up. It's moving from passive listening to active engagement.
Becoming one with the music. A bit dramatic, maybe.
Maybe a little, but that's the idea. It creates a deeper connection to your internal state and allows for a real release. Think about having a really stressful day, putting on a song you love and just letting go, maybe even dancing ridiculously in your living room.
Guilty as charged.
Right. It can instantly change your energy. That letting go of stress is vital, and music gives us this fantastic, often joyful, nonverbal way to do it.
And for the language learners, the kind words.
Oh, huge benefit there too. Music, especially songs with clear, positive lyrics, is an incredibly enjoyable way to absorb vocabulary, pronunciation, rhythm, even cultural context.
Learning without realizing you're learning.
Pretty much. The focus is on the pleasure, the emotion, not on drilling grammar. It makes the learning stick because it's tied to a positive experience.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, sticking with connection, but moving from music to people. The next joy is talking to a friend. Yeah. The source really emphasizes human connection. It doesn't have to be a long, deep conversation either. It mentions a short call, a voice message, even just a small hello on a chat.
Lowering the bar for connection.
Exactly. Telling them how I feel, but also listening, being listened to. And it notes how a voice can bring us closer even if we are far away.
That's lovely, the power of the voice.
It really highlights that fundamental human need for connection, doesn't it? Especially now, when we're supposedly hyper-connected digitally, yet so many people feel isolated.
It's a real paradox.
So how does this simple act, reaching out in these small ways, provide that support and cut through the isolation?
Because that need for connection is wired into us. It's fundamental. When we connect authentically with a friend, even briefly, our brains release positive neurochemicals, oxytocin, dopamine.
The feel-good stuff.
Exactly. It creates feelings of bonding, trust, security. It directly counteracts stress. And the source wisely points out it's both talking and listening.
Right. Reciprocity.
That reciprocity is key. It's about mutual support, feeling seen, feeling heard, feeling valued. In a world of quick likes and superficial interactions, these genuine moments remind us we're not alone. They anchor us.
And hearing a voice really does make a difference compared to just text, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Tone of voice conveys so much emotion, empathy, personality. It closes that distance, like the source says.
And for the language learner, again, this must be huge.
Oh, doubly powerful. It's the emotional support plus it's real-world, low-stakes language practice. Using English or whatever language naturally with a friend, that's gold.
Because it's rewarding, not scary.
Precisely. It chips away at that affective filter, that anxiety. It makes the language feel alive and useful, not just something you study in a book. It's applying the learning in a meaningful context.
So these steps, journaling, music, talking to friends, they help us process internally and then connect externally in healthier ways.
Exactly. Managing the inner world and nurturing the outer connections.
Okay, let's shift again. Moving now to joys that involve engaging more directly with the physical world around us.
Right, getting out and about, maybe.
Yeah. The next one is a real classic and maybe one we take for granted. A short walk.
Ah, yes. Simple but effective.
Totally. The source suggests just 10 or 15 minutes, especially when feeling low. The idea is to observe things, sky, the trees, the people, the world. Breathe slowly. Feel your body, feel the fresh air. And it just notes, it helps so much.
That simplicity is powerful. Just 10 minutes.
It really highlights that immediate mood boost you can get from just moving and getting outside. How does that simple change of scene and some fresh air impact us so quickly and profoundly?
Well, a short walk is basically mobile mindfulness. It's a fantastic intervention, especially when you're feeling low or stuck.
How does it break you out of being stuck?
When you're feeling low, your thoughts can get really circular, right? Stuck in negative loops. Physical movement, especially outdoors, literally helps break those patterns. As you walk and start observing the world around you, the trees, the people, like the source says, you're actively shifting your attention outwards, away from the internal rumination.
Distraction, but in a good way.
More like re-engagement with reality. And the act of breathing slowly, feeling your body move, that grounds you firmly in the present moment, pulls you out of worrying about the past or future.
And the fresh air and light.
Those have documented physiological benefits. Boosting mood, increasing energy levels. It's like a natural reset button. Plus, it reminds you there's a whole world outside your own head, which can offer perspective.
And it doesn't require anything special.
Exactly. That's the beauty. No gym membership, no fancy gear, just walk. What I love is the emphasis on just walk. Feel your body. It's about being present, not about athletic performance.
Yeah, not about hitting a step count necessarily.
Right. It's accessible. It's a universal strategy for just feeling a bit better mentally and physically, literally walking yourself out of a funk sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And building on that theme of noticing the world, the final joy they list is smiling at small things.
I like this one.
Me too. It encourages you to smile at stuff like a flower on the sidewalk, a cute dog, a baby laughing, a nice smell from a bakery.
Little detail.
Yeah. To actually stop, notice these things, and let yourself smile, even if, as it says, the day is not perfect, because it reminds me that life has good moments too.
That's such a conscious act of shifting focus.
It really feels like it, like actively rewiring your attention. We get bombarded with so much stuff, a lot of it negative. How does this tiny act of noticing and smiling actually change our outlook, especially when we don't really feel like smiling.
It's a beautiful exercise in what some psychologists call cultivating an eye for the good.
An eye for the good. I like that.
Our brains naturally have this negativity bias. We're wired to notice threats and problems more easily. It helped us survive back in the day.
Right. Kept us from getting eaten.
Pretty much. But in modern life, that bias can keep us focused on worries and what's wrong. So consciously stopping to notice and smile at something pleasant, the flower, the dog, is direct counteraction.
You're fighting the bias.
You're actively retraining your attention. It's a practice like gratitude. You're intentionally shifting your focus from what might be wrong or stressful to what is actually right, pleasant, or beautiful in that moment.
And the smiling part itself, does that actually do anything if you're faking it a bit?
Interestingly, yes. Research suggests the physical act of smiling, even if it's not entirely spontaneous at first, can trigger physiological changes. It can release endorphins, those feel-good chemicals, and potentially lower stress hormones.
Wow. Fake it till you make it, kind of.
Sort of, yeah. The muscle activation sends signals to your brain. So even if the day isn't perfect, doing this reminds you, like the source says, that life has good moments too. It fosters a more balanced, optimistic perspective over time.
It's not about ignoring the bad stuff.
Not at all. It's about giving the good stuff, even the tiny good stuff, its proper weight, building resilience, building that mental muscle for noticing the good.
What a fantastic list. So practical, yet profound. We've got the morning quiet, making the bed, the warm drink, journaling, music, talking to a friend, a short walk, smiling at small things.
And woven through all of them are those underlying themes of being present and breathing slowly.
Absolutely. They're like the foundation. Okay, so let's really unpack this now from the other angle we talked about.
The communication method.
Exactly. Because the original material, the Fluent Flow podcast segment, wasn't just sharing these joys. It was demonstrating a specific way of communicating.
Right. It walks the talk.
It really does. It explicitly says it's written in slow, clear English using simple vocabulary. It says it's designed especially for beginner English learners to help with listening, pronunciation, and getting inspired. It mentions talking in English, slowly and clearly.
They're very transparent about the technique.
Totally.
So beyond the wisdom of the simple joys themselves, there's this incredible pedagogical power in how they deliver it. Why is that approach slow, clear, simple words, positive tone, maybe even some repetition? Why is it so effective, not just for learners, but maybe for anyone trying to grasp something new? What's the magic in that slowly conversation?
This is where I think the source offers that second, equally valuable layer of insight, this slow conversation approach. It's basically a masterclass in effective communication, especially when learning or understanding is the goal.
Okay, let's break down why it's a masterclass.
Sure. First off, it provides what educators often call comprehensible input.
Comprehensible input.
Meaning the information is presented in a way the listener can actually understand. By breaking ideas into smaller chunks, using simple vocabulary, short sentences, it makes the meaning accessible.
Like building with small, clear Lego blocks instead of giant, confusing ones. That's a great analogy. You see it in the source text. Life is hard. I like soft music. Just 10 or 15 minutes. They're digestible units of meaning. Not long, rambling sentences that make your brain work over time just to follow the grammar.
Right. Avoids overwhelming the listener.
Exactly. Which leads to the second point. It significantly reduces cognitive load.
Cognitive load, like mental effort.
Precisely. When information comes at you too fast or uses really complex words and sentence structures, your brain gets overloaded just trying to decode the language itself. There's very little mental bandwidth left over to actually process the meaning.
Okay, so you're too busy figuring out the words to figure out the point.
You got it. By slowing down and simplifying, the material frees up your brain power. You can focus on the message, on understanding the ideas, not just struggling with the words. This helps with comprehension, retention, making the ideas actually stick.
Makes sense. What else?
Third, specifically for the language learners, that clear articulation and deliberate pace are absolute gold for pronunciation and listening practice.
How?
Well, each sound becomes more distinct. Each word gets its own space. It helps the listener clearly hear individual words, connect the sounds to the written form maybe, and internalize the natural rhythm and intonation of English.
Like slowing down a song to hear the individual notes.
Exactly. It's like a linguistic magnifying glass. Much easier than trying to catch words flying by in rapid native speaker conversation. This slowly conversation makes every syllable more accessible.
Okay. Comprehensible input, reduce cognitive load, better listening practice, anything else?
Yes, and this is crucial. The overall calm, positive, and encouraging tone.
Back to the affective filter.
Back to the affective filter. A low anxiety, positive environment makes learners massively more receptive. They feel safer, more supported, less likely to shut down due to fear of mistakes or feeling overwhelmed.
It creates psychological safety for learning.
Beautifully put. And things like repeating key phrases, simple things that make me happy, or asking direct, gentle questions. Can you try that? They reinforce understanding and encourage engagement without adding pressure. It models exactly what it's teaching: gentle, clear, accessible communication.
It's really striking how these principles, born out of teaching English, seem so universally applicable.
They really are.
So if we take these lessons, how could we apply slow, clear, and simple outside of language learning? Could this genuinely help in, say, a work presentation or explaining something complex to a kid, or even just in our daily conversations?
Oh, absolutely. The potential applications are huge. Think about it. Explaining a new process at work.
Often done badly.
Often done badly. Rushed, full of jargon, or trying to explain a complex scientific idea to a friend, or even just trying to articulate a sensitive personal feeling to someone you care about.
Yeah.
If you rush, use insider speak, or get tangled in complex sentences, you risk losing your audience. They might nod along, but they haven't actually understood.
Right. The message doesn't land.
Exactly. But if you consciously adopt these principles, break it down, simplify the language where you can, use relatable examples, speak at a pace that allows for processing, you make your message accessible.
It's about the listener's understanding, not just about getting the words out.
Precisely. It's fundamentally about empathy and communication, respecting the listener's cognitive capacity, genuinely wanting them to get it, not just hear you.
So the brilliance here really is in both the simple joys and the clear delivery.
That's the core insight, I think. It models this incredibly powerful, gentle way to guide understanding, whether it's learning English, grasping a new concept, or just connecting more clearly with another person. It shows us the real value of making a slowly conversation.
Wow. This has been incredibly insightful. We started with what looked like a simple guide to daily happiness, and we've really unpacked two potent layers of wisdom. First, the profound impact of weaving those simple, accessible joys into daily life. Not huge things, but small, mindful actions that genuinely shift our perspective and remind us, like the source says, that life has good moments.
Builds resilience, enhances well-being.
Definitely. And second, just as powerful, we've seen this incredibly effective communication strategy in action, delivering information slowly and clearly, using simple language. Designed for learners, yes, but truly beneficial for anyone trying to process information without feeling swamped.
Making knowledge accessible, reducing that cognitive load, creating a receptive space.
Yeah, it really did deliver those aha moments from a source that seemed quite straightforward initially.
It certainly did. And given everything we've unpacked today about finding that joy and simplicity and the real power of clear, accessible communication, perhaps I can leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over.
Please do.
Consider this. What simple things are already present in your own life that maybe you could start observing more deeply, really extracting that well-being benefit? And on the flip side, what idea or concept, maybe something you understand well, could you try explaining more slowly, more clearly, to help someone else truly learn or understand it?
Ooh, that's a great challenge. Applying both sides of what we discussed. Observe the simple, explain with clarity.
Exactly, bringing it into your own experience.
That's a wonderful thought to carry forward. So as you go about your day, maybe try to notice those small moments, the sky, the tea, a friendly voice. They're there.
Waiting to be noticed.
And maybe also think about how you share your own knowledge. Could you borrow some of that slow and clear style to make your message land more effectively, more kindly? Until next time, keep exploring, keep noticing.
And keep finding those surprising insights.
Exactly. Those facts that make the world just a little bit clearer.